Gentlemen, in a world full of noise, confusion, and mixed messages, one truth still stands. Respect cannot be demanded, it must be earned. And when it comes to women, there is a certain kind of man who earns their deepest respect, not by pretending, not by performing, but by being. A man who has standards is a man who understands the true meaning of self-respect. He doesn't operate from a place of desperation, and he never lowers himself just to be accepted or liked. His standards are not just preferences. They are deeply rooted values and principles that guide how he lives, how he interacts with people, and how he chooses the relationships he entertains. These standards show up in everything: how he dresses, how he speaks, how he handles his responsibilities, how he navigates conflict, and especially how he responds to the way he is treated. When a woman meets a man like this, she may test him, consciously or unconsciously. She might push his boundaries, cancel plans, ignore texts, play games, or even challenge his views just to see what he's really made of. And here's where most men go wrong: they fold. They rationalize her behavior, they excuse the disrespect, they tolerate the inconsistency, all in the name of being understanding or not wanting to lose her. But what they're actually doing is proving that they value her attention more than they value their own integrity. And in that moment, the woman loses respect, not because she's cruel or heartless, but because nature itself respects strength, not weakness. Now imagine a man who calmly holds the line. She flakes on him, and he simply withdraws his energy without bitterness. She talks down to him, and he doesn't argue. He removes himself. She tries to manipulate through silence or seduction, and he doesn't chase, because he knows the cost of compromising his dignity is far greater than the reward of temporary affection. This man is not angry, he is not bitter, he is centered. His standards are not flexible based on how attractive the woman is or how lonely he feels, and that alone makes him rare. Women don't respect men who say yes to everything. They don't respect men who avoid confrontation just to keep the peace. And they certainly don't respect men who let disrespect slide because they're afraid of being alone. They respect the man who says, "This is how I expect to be treated. If that's too much, then I wish you well." That kind of detachment, backed by unshakable standards, creates a gravitational pull. It forces people to rise to meet his level or be left behind. And it's not because he's trying to control others. It's because he refuses to lose control over himself. Having standards also means he filters what kind of energy he allows into his life. He doesn't surround himself with people who gossip, complain, or drain him. He doesn't tolerate flaky friends, disrespectful family, or manipulative partners. He lives by the belief that energy is everything, and protecting his peace is non-negotiable. He doesn't just set standards for others. He enforces standards for himself. He disciplines his own mind, holds himself accountable, and does not make excuses for failure. He doesn't eat junk food when he's trying to get in shape. He doesn't skip the grind when he's building a future. He says what he means and means what he says. This consistency makes him trustworthy. Women feel safer around him, not just physically, but emotionally, because they can sense that he won't be swayed by their beauty, their charm, or their emotions. He sees through the noise, and he sees himself clearly. And that self-awareness radiates strength. It's not arrogance, it's certainty, and that's why women respect him. He has standards, and nothing and no one makes him betray them. A man who is emotionally controlled is not emotionless. He feels everything: pain, anger, sadness, joy. but he does not allow those emotions to govern his actions. This kind of man is not impulsive. He doesn't explode when he's frustrated, nor does he break down when things don't go his way. Instead, he processes his emotions internally, filters them through reason, and responds in a way that aligns with his values, not with temporary feelings. Emotional control is a form of internal mastery, and it's one of the most powerful traits a man can possess. It doesn't come naturally. It's developed over time through discipline, self-reflection, and experience. Women are extremely perceptive to emotional energy. They can sense when a man is easily rattled, easily offended, or easily manipulated through guilt, jealousy, or fear. When a woman sees that her emotions completely dictate his behavior, when he becomes reactive, defensive, or desperate, something inside her shifts. She starts to feel that he is not grounded. She starts to doubt his strength. She might not say it out loud, but she begins to feel less safe with him, less attracted, less respectful. Because if he cannot regulate himself, how can he lead? How can he protect? How can he be trusted in moments of pressure? But when she encounters a man who can sit in discomfort without needing to escape it, who can hear criticism without losing his temper, who can face rejection without collapsing into self-pity, she feels something entirely different. She feels that she is dealing with someone rare. This man is not just physically strong or financially stable. He is emotionally fortified. He doesn't let moods control his decisions. He doesn't yell to assert dominance or cry to manipulate. His presence is calm, even when the world around him is chaotic. That calmness becomes a form of silent authority. This kind of emotional self-mastery is especially powerful in conflict. Most men either lash out or shut down when they're emotionally triggered. They become petty, passive, aggressive, or accusatory. But the emotionally controlled man doesn't play those games. He listens, he observes, he chooses his words carefully. He's not trying to win the argument. He's trying to maintain integrity. He understands that his response is a reflection of his inner world, and so he protects that space fiercely. This doesn't mean he suppresses emotions. It means he expresses them in a way that is measured, direct, and clean. No guilt trips, no tantrums, no need to be right. Just truth calmly delivered. This control extends to how he handles temptation, pressure, and even success. He doesn't lose himself in lust, greed, or pride. He doesn't make reckless choices because he felt like it. He understands that every decision has a consequence, and so he thinks before he acts. That makes him consistent, and consistency breeds respect. Women don't respect the man who is emotionally all over the place, happy one moment, cold the next, angry the next. They respect the man whose emotional tone remains steady, regardless of the circumstances. Being emotionally controlled also gives him the upper hand in social and romantic dynamics. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't get flustered by mixed signals or games. If a woman tries to provoke him, test him, or pull him out of character, he doesn't react. He simply sees it for what it is and holds his ground. That stillness unsettles people who are used to controlling others through drama. And that stillness is exactly what makes him so powerful. He is not trying to be liked. He is trying to be in alignment. And that alignment makes him unshakable. To have emotional control is to have power, not over others, but over yourself. And the man who has power over himself cannot be broken by circumstances, manipulated by emotions, or swayed by chaos. He is the eye of the storm, and that is exactly the kind of man that draws not just attention, but deep, lasting respect from any woman who truly understands what real strength looks like. A man who walks away when necessary is a man who understands the principle of value, his own above all. He is not a man who walks away out of spite or ego, but out of clarity. He recognizes when a situation no longer aligns with his standards, his peace, or his vision, and instead of begging, pleading, or chasing, he lets go. Not because he doesn't care, but because he cares too much about his self-respect to stay where he is not valued. This kind of man doesn't cling to potential. He sees things for what they are, not for what he hopes they could become. He understands that energy that's not reciprocated is energy wasted, and so he walks, even if it hurts, even if it means being alone. Most men struggle with walking away. They stay in relationships that are unfulfilling, toxic, or one-sided because they fear the unknown. They fear being alone. They fear the silence. They fear the space where no one is calling, no one is texting, no one is validating them. So they tolerate behavior that slowly erodes their dignity. They become slaves to connection, addicted to attention, desperate for affection. And women see it. They might not say it outright, but they feel the shift. They sense when a man is holding on out of fear instead of strength, and the moment they realize he won't leave, no matter how he's treated, is the moment their respect begins to fade. But when a woman meets a man who is not afraid to walk away, it stops her in her tracks. She realizes she can't use manipulation, seduction, or emotional chaos to keep him. She realizes he's not available for the usual games. She may try to provoke a reaction, test his loyalty, push his buttons, but when he sees through it and calmly distances himself, she feels the weight of his absence more than the intensity of his presence. That absence carries power because it sends a silent message: I don't need to be here. I choose to be here. But if this space becomes one where I am not valued, I will leave without drama and without hesitation. This ability to walk away comes from detachment, and detachment is not indifference. It's inner peace. A man who is detached is not cold-hearted. He simply refuses to be emotionally enslaved by someone else's inconsistency or disrespect. He knows that walking away is not weakness, it is wisdom. He doesn't try to fix people who don't want to be fixed. He doesn't try to convince someone to see his worth. He doesn't argue to prove his point. He knows that sometimes silence is louder than words, and distance is stronger than any explanation. When he walks away, it's not a cry for attention. It's a declaration of finality. Women respect this deeply, even if they don't admit it. They may be shocked when he leaves, surprised when he doesn't chase, confused when he doesn't come back. But over time, they come to understand that this man values himself more than he values temporary pleasure or emotional dependency. They begin to see that his detachment is a byproduct of his strength, not his weakness. And many times, it is after he's gone that they begin to reflect, to regret, to realize the caliber of man they were dealing with. Because in a world full of men who beg, chase, and tolerate anything just to stay close, the one who walks away becomes unforgettable. Walking away also creates space for peace, for healing, for better connections. This kind of man doesn't stay in rooms where he isn't wanted. He doesn't fight for love that's conditional. He understands that real connection cannot be forced, and real respect cannot be negotiated. He knows that by walking away, he protects his time, his energy, and his dignity. and in doing so, he sends a message to the universe that he is ready for something more aligned, more balanced, more worthy of his presence. A man who walks away when necessary is not emotionally detached. He's emotionally disciplined. He's not afraid of loss because he understands that what's meant for him will not require him to sacrifice his self-respect. He's not threatened by rejection because he knows that rejection is often redirection, and he's not interested in control because he trusts that life rewards those who are willing to let go of what no longer serves them. His power lies in his restraint, in his refusal to tolerate what doesn't align, and in his quiet decision to choose himself every single time. A man who leads himself first is a man who doesn't wait for permission to step into his power. He doesn't need someone else to validate his path, guide his direction, or inspire his actions. He is the engine, not the passenger. This kind of man doesn't drift through life aimlessly. He moves with purpose. He wakes up with a sense of responsibility, a mission that drives him, something that demands his discipline and focus. He's not looking for someone to save him from his circumstances. He becomes the architect of his reality. He leads himself not through words, but through daily habits, structured choices, and long-term vision. Most people in today's world are reactive. They wait for something external to push them before they take initiative. But the man who leads himself doesn't need pressure to perform. He is self-motivated. He builds routines that challenge him. He sets goals that stretch him. He reads, he trains, he plans, he builds. Whether anyone is watching or not, whether anyone praises him or not, he does the work. And this consistency becomes his identity. His actions are not based on how he feels in the moment. They're based on who he's committed to becoming. This kind of internal leadership is what separates boys from men. Boys wait to be told what to do. Men move forward because they know it's their duty to lead. First themselves, then others. A man who leads himself first doesn't blame others when things go wrong. He doesn't look for scapegoats. He owns his decisions, his failures, and his results. He has self-awareness. He reflects, he corrects, and he adapts. This accountability builds quiet confidence. It's not loud or boastful. It's grounded. He knows who he is, what he wants, and what it takes to get there. When a woman meets a man like this, she can sense the difference immediately. She doesn't need to push him to be ambitious. She doesn't have to remind him to take care of his body, his finances, or his future. He's already on it. He's already doing the work. He's not looking for someone to complete him. He's looking for someone who complements the life he's already building. That kind of masculine energy is magnetic, not because he demands submission, but because he inspires trust. A woman can relax in his presence, not because he controls her, but because he clearly controls himself. Leadership starts with discipline, and discipline starts with decisions. This man chooses long-term fulfillment over short-term pleasure. He doesn't chase distractions. He limits vices. He doesn't scroll mindlessly, indulge endlessly, or waste energy on things that don't serve his vision. He knows that every choice he makes is either investing in his future or robbing from it. This awareness sharpens his mind. It creates clarity, and that clarity is rare. Most people are lost in confusion and chaos, but the man who leads himself walks with direction. He doesn't need a crowd to feel powerful. He doesn't need noise to feel important. His life is his message. He also leads in the way he handles adversity when life gets hard, and it always does. He doesn't fold. He steps into the pressure. He sees hardship as an opportunity to grow stronger, sharper, more resilient. He doesn't collapse into self-pity or avoid the discomfort. He leans into it, he studies it, he lets it refine him, and when he comes out the other side, he's not bitter, he's better. That kind of strength can't be faked. It has to be earned through experience, and it shows in the way he carries himself, speaks, and responds to the world around him. A man who leads himself first also respects his time. He doesn't overcommit, overextend, or over-explain. He knows that every yes to something trivial is a no to something essential, so he guards his schedule not selfishly, but strategically. He knows that if he doesn't lead his time will lead him into distraction and regret. This makes him highly intentional. Every meeting, every conversation, every relationship, he evaluates whether it aligns with his mission. If it doesn't, he lets it go, not because he's cold, but because he's focused. He understands the cost of wasted time, and he refuses to pay it. And because he leads himself, others naturally begin to follow, not because he asks them to, but because leadership is magnetic. People feel safe around him. They feel challenged around him. They feel inspired to become better. That's the mark of real leadership. It creates movement, it creates growth, and it elevates the standard for everyone it touches. But all of it begins with one thing: leading himself first. Because a man who cannot govern his own life has no business leading anyone else. A man who is purpose-driven radiates a different kind of energy. It's not the loud, boastful energy of someone who's chasing clout or trying to impress others. It's the quiet, unshakable focus of someone who knows exactly why he wakes up every day. His life is anchored in something bigger than comfort, bigger than approval, and bigger than the temporary highs that most people chase. He's not swayed by trends, fads, or opinions. His purpose gives him direction, and that direction gives him power. He knows where he's going, and that certainty makes him rare. Most men today live in a fog. They wake up, scroll through their phones, go to jobs they hate, tolerate relationships that drain them, and numb themselves with entertainment, substances, or distractions. They have no mission, no goal, no fire inside them. They live to consume, not to create. And when a woman encounters a man like that, she might tolerate him for a while, but she won't respect him deeply, because no woman can feel truly safe, inspired, or drawn to a man who has no inner fire. A man who drifts makes everyone around him drift. A man with no purpose becomes an emotional burden, a source of insecurity, a symbol of what it looks like to give up. But a man who is purpose-driven moves differently. He doesn't waste time, he doesn't waste words, he's not perfect, but he's persistent. Every action he takes is filtered through the lens of his mission. Whether he's building a business, mastering a craft, pursuing a cause, or leveling up his character, he moves with intention, and that intention affects everything: how he spends his time, who he associates with, what he tolerates, and how he carries himself. He walks with posture, he speaks with clarity, he lives with standards, not because he's trying to appear powerful, but because he simply is. His purpose demands it. Women are instinctively drawn to this kind of man, not because of what he has materially, but because of what he radiates internally. His life isn't centered around chasing women. It's centered around building something that matters. And ironically, that's exactly what draws women in. They sense his absence from the typical games. They feel the weight of his presence when he enters a room. He doesn't need attention, yet he gets it. He doesn't need validation, yet people respect him. He becomes the type of man women want to be around, not because they can control him, but because they know they can't. That mystery, that strength, that focus, it creates gravity, being purpose. Driven also means he can endure more. He doesn't give up when it gets hard. He doesn't fold when it's inconvenient. He understands that purpose comes with pressure, and he accepts that pressure as part of the process. He's not addicted to comfort. He's addicted to growth. He's not looking for the easiest route. He's looking for the right one, and because of that, his life becomes a journey of evolution. Every year, he becomes more refined, more disciplined, more effective. He's not who he was last year, and he won't be the same man a year from now. That growth becomes his identity, and it makes him unstoppable. Purpose also brings clarity in relationships. A man with a mission doesn't settle. He's not looking for someone to complete him. He's looking for someone who aligns with where he's going. He doesn't chase beauty alone. He seeks character, depth, and synergy. If a woman distracts him from his purpose, he distances himself. If a relationship becomes a source of chaos or confusion, he steps away. He's not afraid to be alone because his purpose keeps him company. He knows that a partner should add value, not become the center of his existence. And because of that, he naturally attracts women who are secure, grounded, and you themselves. Purpose brings out the best version of a man. It disciplines his habits, elevates his mindset, and strengthens his willpower. It gives him something to sacrifice for, something to wake up early for, something to fight for. And that creates fulfillment that no amount of money, attention, or romance can replicate. A man who has purpose is a man who is alive. Fully, fiercely, unapologetically alive. And that kind of man is rare, not because he's perfect, but because he's aligned. Everything about him, the way he moves, the way he speaks, the way he chooses, comes from within. And in a world full of men who are lost, distracted, and disconnected, the man with purpose becomes unforgettable. A man who is emotionally grounded commands a deep, quiet respect because he is not tossed around by the chaos of life or the unpredictability of others. He's not numb or cold. He feels everything, but his emotions don't control him. He is the eye of the storm. While others react impulsively, get triggered easily, or allow emotions to dictate their behavior, he maintains composure. This isn't because he's suppressing how he feels. It's because he has mastered the art of emotional discipline. His responses are thoughtful, not explosive. He doesn't panic under pressure, doesn't crumble in conflict, and doesn't seek drama to feel alive. His stillness is his strength. In today's world, emotional reactivity is everywhere. Men lash out when they feel disrespected. They argue over minor slights. They spiral when someone ignores them. They become needy when they feel affection slipping away. All of this comes from emotional immaturity, an inability to hold discomfort without reacting to it. But the emotionally grounded man doesn't need validation to feel secure. He doesn't need others to behave a certain way for him to remain at peace. He is rooted in himself. His emotional foundation is not built on someone else's attention, mood, or approval. And this makes him powerful, because it means he is stable in a world full of instability. Women are naturally drawn to this type of man because he creates an emotional container that feels safe. She knows that no matter what's going on, whether she's upset, whether life throws a curveball, whether there's conflict, he's not going to unravel. He's not going to gilt, trip, stonewall, yell, or crumble. He's going to remain calm, present, and anchored. And that calmness doesn't just benefit her. It stabilizes the entire dynamic. It gives her the freedom to be vulnerable without fearing volatility in return. It invites her to trust, to open, to surrender, because she senses she's with someone who won't collapse under pressure. Emotional grounding doesn't mean he avoids hard conversations. In fact, he embraces them. But he does so without needing to win or dominate. He's not interested in power struggles. He's interested in understanding. He can listen without interrupting. He can speak without attacking. He can express hurt without becoming aggressive. And when he's wrong, he can admit it, without defensiveness, without excuses. That kind of emotional maturity is rare. It requires humility, it requires self-reflection, and it requires a willingness to grow rather than be right. A man who is emotionally grounded also knows how to regulate his energy. He doesn't bring the chaos of his day into every room he walks into. He doesn't take out his stress on others. He takes responsibility for his emotional state. If he's overwhelmed, he centers himself. If he's triggered, he pauses. If he feels anger, he channels it into clarity, not destruction. He doesn't avoid emotions. He processes them. He journals, he meditates, he works out. He talks through things with trusted people, but he never makes his internal storm someone else's burden. This level of responsibility builds immense self-respect, and in turn earns the respect of others. He also doesn't chase emotional highs. He's not addicted to the honeymoon phase of relationships or the temporary rush of approval. He values stability over excitement, depth over drama, truth over comfort. He understands that real love, real intimacy, and real leadership require emotional stamina, not just emotional chemistry. So he invests in emotional tools. He learns how to communicate clearly, how to de-escalate tension, how to recognize when he's being irrational or reactive. He sharpens his emotional intelligence like a warrior sharpens his sword, and because of this, he becomes someone who can navigate complex situations with grace and strength. When life inevitably throws challenges his way, loss, betrayal, disappointment, he doesn't deny the pain. He faces it, he sits with it, he learns from it, but he doesn't let it define him. He grieves without becoming a victim. He reflects without becoming paralyzed. He evolves without needing to destroy everything around him. That resilience, that ability to endure emotional intensity without becoming self-destructive, makes him trustworthy, not just to others, but to himself. He knows that no matter what happens, he can handle it. He's walked through fire and came out forged, not broken. An emotionally grounded man also elevates the people around him. His presence brings calm, not tension. His energy soothes, not disturbs. He doesn't dominate conversations with emotional outbursts or passive, aggressive silence. He listens, he validates, he holds space, and that presence is healing. Not because he tries to fix everyone, but because people feel seen and safe around him. That's a rare quality, and it comes only through deep inner work, a commitment to facing himself fully and constantly refining his emotional responses. He doesn't use emotional manipulation to get what he wants. He doesn't play the victim or the savior. He doesn't guilt people into compliance or withdraw love when things don't go his way. His emotional clarity makes his intentions pure, his communication clean, and his relationships honest. People can trust what he says, not because he's always agreeable, but because he's real. He means what he says and says what he means. And in a world full of emotional chaos, mood swings, and unstable relationships, a man who is emotionally grounded stands out like a lighthouse in the storm. And that's why women respect this kind of man the most. Not because he's the loudest in the room, not because he demands attention, and not because he conforms to superficial standards of masculinity, but because he embodies true strength. He leads himself first, he moves with purpose, he operates with emotional integrity. His presence brings order, not confusion. He doesn't just talk about being a man. He lives it through action, consistency, and self-mastery. In a world full of noise and pretense, this kind of man becomes unforgettable, not just admired, but deeply, genuinely respected.